Good morning and welcome back to Live on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes. Scott Moon and Chuck Manley are absent today, but we have a full panel replacing them, and we'll have to see if we bring them back for the next show. Welcome everybody in the live chat. Unity 151 Sci-Fi Booktube, you are the first comment, so you get the Keystroke Medium golf clap of appreciation for being the first comment. Thank you. If this is your first time on our live feed, please do consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification button. It helps. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers this year, and we're super close. I think we're like 12 away or 20 away or something. So if you haven't subscribed, go and do it. You could be the one that pushes us over 1,000. If you're listening on the audio feed, welcome. And if you didn't know, we do live shows every Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, or every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, whichever way your week goes. And you should come hang out with us because that's where all the magic happens, is in the live chat. So welcome to our guests. Oh, I need to change this thing here. What am I doing? There we go. That's done. The show's actually started now that the thing is right. Casey, Ezell, Chuck Gannon, Mike Massa, Toni Weisskpf, and Chris Kennedy are here to talk about a really interesting and I think unique publishing and writing venture that they all have their parts in. And we've talked a lot about collaboration on the show over the last couple of seasons, and interestingly enough, I think this is the first publishing collaboration that I've come across, and I think that'll be some good conversation later on in the show. The Murphy's Lawless series is a series of novellas written by various authors in Charles Gannon's universe. The Caine, is it Riordan? I don't want to. Riordan. Okay. And those series of books that have first published by Charles Gannon, and now other authors are coming into his universe to write their own novellas. And I think this is interesting because the original series is published by Baen, and now this new novella series is published by one of Chris's imprints. And so that dichotomy of the two publishing things I think is really interesting. But Charles, would you please introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about the universe and then kind of the inception of this idea?
Sure. I'm Chuck Gannon, but everything I write, if you look for me, Chuck won't get you there. It's Charles E Gannon. This is my first solo book was with Toni, who took a chance on me, and I have certainly been very grateful for it, and hopefully she hasn't regretted it. It is a hard science fiction epic. It kind of leads with a bit of a military edge, but in every book you're going to have intrigue, and you're also going to have, in most of them, a kind of first contact situation. There's a deeper level, which interesting on the group page right now is polling higher than anything else, which is that there are backstory mysteries, because this is all sort of laid over a question mark having to do with what was going on in our stellar cluster about 20,000 years ago or before. And for some reason, well, I love it when a plan works out. That was sort of the driver. That's the connective tissue all the way along the series. The constantly rebaited hook, if you will. So that's the story of there are 5 books that are out through Baen, which has been, to put it, it is a huge understatement to say enormously supportive. And actually the mere fact that we're here today is an indication of just of the fact that there's no way to really indicate just how supportive it is, because as you said, and I've checked with a bunch of people on this, it seems to be kind of unique what we're doing. And that unique nature would not be possible if the lady, I'm going to try to do the reverse point. Am I yes, okay.
You got it. Nice.
Right down there. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be doing this, because
I'm the only one that got it wrong.
Yeah. Don't advertise that. Don't advertise.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other publisher. Forget the big 5. Forget even anything on any other tier you want to go under that, which has shown the openness and the interest, and I think maybe sees the possibilities of. I mean, I know she sees the possibilities. I'm saying I'm not sure the possibilities will play out exactly as we think. but is willing to take a chance on that. And the fact that I think, and why not? Because publishing is evolving. So we're at the 5th book. They've all been national bestsellers, which made it kind of easier to, I think, bring audience over. Four of them have been Nebula finalists. And that allowed me, I think, to gather a bit of an audience, which then made it useful for me to go to Chris. But before I went to Chris, and before my voice started cracking again, I guess I'm 14 here again. I'm gonna be buying Clearasil as soon as I leave here. Just to start your day there. The first thing I did was I went to that lady that I pointed at before, and said at a Dragon Con, this is a thing I'm thinking of doing. And I said, how do you feel about it? And she said, I feel great about it. Just make sure it doesn't interfere with the primary product, which is the key thing. But
right.
Part of this was done, just to let you know, this was about 2 to 3 years in the making, in the terms of from first conversation, me sort of looking at what was going on in the electronic and the indie field, making sure I was going to make the right relationship, checking out with the person who's essentially was the midwife / publishing progenitor of the entire series, then go and talk to people, and then make sure we had an organization that moved along and we evolved the process together, so that despite the fact that it was a pretty hairy first year, it was a good hairy first year. And I went to this guy at this point, this guy, and said, you know my Caine Riordan series? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I have this idea about, and he said, I'm sold. So, okay, I figured that was easy.
It does not surprise me about Chris one at all. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some backstory to that too, which he might get into, having to do with HonorCon 2016, I think, which was sort of, we got along right away. And I think for me, that was a really good, I do a lot based on gut instinct in terms of who I'm working with. So that is how we got here. And that's more than enough runway for everybody else to take off. I'm shutting up now.
Toni, you wanted to say something while he was mentioning the...
I do, yeah. I just want to say that that I'm a capitalist, right? So I like it when we make money, and I like it, and I don't think it's a zero-sum game. So I like the idea of getting more access to more audience, because the rising tide raises all ships, and I'm really pleased with that. Now, it doesn't hurt that Baen Books also retails ebooks, and some of from other publishers, and we retail ebooks from Chris Kennedy. So now we do from a lot of other publishers. So Chuck had a wide range to choose from for us to be happy with his second partner for these novellas. But we have a relationship with Chris already, and that's nice. So it means that the core audience for these books are also going to get access to them, so you can serve your core audience while still building your audience, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
One of the things, Toni, I'm curious.
I think that we share a lot of readers too, between Baen and Chris Kennedy Publishing. So I think that it's the working relationship works really well, because a lot of the readers that come to me are very, very familiar with Baen because of authors like Chuck and Casey and Mike. That's kind of the.
And we lost him.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing too is that these are novellas, which is a great size for a science fiction story, especially in a. Looks like we lost Josh too. I hope we.
I'm here. I'm just listening.
Okay, good. I'm just saying that the novella is a great size for a science fiction story, especially in an established universe where you don't have to do a lot of world building. You can just cut straight to the action, so we had, making these considerations and saying we could try to plump them out and sell them as novels, but that didn't seem right to me. Now I know other publishers have done that, but that's not something that we're going to do. So this again made a lot of sense to me, to spread the love.
One of the things I'm interested about from a publishing aspect is, writing in shared universes isn't necessarily a new thing. It's been happening for a long time, but with the growth of the kind of hybrid indie market, we've seen a lot of it, especially like you look at like Chris's Four Horsemen universe, where they have tons and tons of authors writing in that shared universe, right. and a lot of other shared universes. I'm in that one. I'm in a couple other shared universes too, and it seems like because of the way that indie publishing works as a mechanism, that lends itself a lot easier to putting out these smaller works, these more collaborative efforts. So when you went to look at this project, Chuck and Toni and Chris, when you were talking about the logistics of everything, it seemed like it just kind of made sense to do it as a kind of an indie publishing rather than have Baen go all in and produce the hardcovers and all that stuff, because the time invested in making those products doesn't really go well with fast publishing.
Well, we are a traditional publisher, but we can turn things around pretty quickly. So I don't think speed had to do with it.
Okay.
I think it's more the length, actually.
Okay.
And if I can jump in, one of the things,
sure.
And Toni's being very nice here, as in she's covering up for me. The bottom line is that anthologies, as I understand it, which is really the way that you get to the sort of short format, can be a really difficult price point to make profit at. The ROI on that for a traditional publisher is tough. So I looked at that and I said, well, let's make lemonade from those lemons. So we're going to stick to a novella format. We're going to not make it all dependent on one big project. We roll them out. And we roll them out at a rate so that to me, and this gets back to the first time I met Chris was at HonorCon 2016, and it seemed to me that everything that was happening was moving towards what I'm going to call the Netflix model, moving into publishing. In that there's an appetite, there's a beat, it's like if you can deliver something every month, every other month, and people know it, and Chris jumped on this and set a constant date. And all of that sort of thing, then you're sort of, I don't want to use the word, it sounds, you're in television, the terrible word they use is training. I would like to use instead the word build anticipation and expectation tagged to a single day on the calendar every month, and that people sort of say, that's what we're looking for. Oh, I know that's coming. And that's the sort of thing that really helps you build and sustain audience. And
I think Pavlov had a term for that. Yeah.
Ding! That could be an operant concept here. Yes, absolutely.
Well, and speaking of Netflix and the Netflix model, the other side of that is that with these shorter formats and with the rapid release system, right, you get a bingeable product, which is absolutely something that readers want, and that's part of the reason why shared worlds are so popular, is because 6 authors can create quality product in volume that one single author can only do if he's John Ringo on a good day. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and Baen was an innovator.
Mike, I don't think your microphone was working. You were unmuted, but it wasn't coming through.
Yeah. Jim started with Thieves World over at Ace, and then he talked Larry Niven into opening up Known Space and with the Man-Kazin Wars, and so shared worlds are something that Baen certainly understands, and it does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Josh, mic check.
Yeah, go ahead. You're good now.
I was going to pile on and say one of the things that's fun about participating in someone else's world is you go, God, I wish I'd had that idea. I've got this great follow-on idea, and you get to play in the universe, and that's pretty exciting.
And how is it, Mike? And this question's also for Casey too. Casey, I know you've written in a lot of shared worlds too. Going through like the editorial process for the not really editing the book, but keeping it as a in canon or keeping the continuity for the book and the series. How was that working in this series?
You want to go first, Casey?
Sure. So for me, within the Murphy's Lawless series, I have the 4th novella called Promises. And when we first began this venture together, Chuck was very smart, and he selected the individuals that he wanted to invite to come and play, and he got us all together via email, and eventually via I guess it was email primarily. And when Mike's book Shakes, which was the kickoff volume for the series, when that first came out, or before it even first came out, once we had an approved manuscript that had been through Chuck for continuity editing, and had been through Chris, we all got it. We all got the manuscript, so we were all able to read it and kind of use it as a building block for our own stories. And I found that to be super, super helpful. And then when it came time to figure out my own stuff, I, based on what I'd read in Shakes and Obligation and Maneater, which are the intervening volumes, by Kevin Eikenberry and Griffin Barber, respectively. I should probably drop their names. I kind of sat down and said, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I want to do. And I corresponded with Chuck, and got his feedback, and sort of together kind of built like I don't know if you want to call it an outline, but I guess like the skeleton of the story, sure. Right? And then I drafted the thing up and sent it to Chuck, and started through with the editing iteration. So, but that prep work on the front end of reading the other volumes and kind of developing where I was going to go with the story with Chuck was really, really helpful in keeping it all in continuity and keeping it all part of the universe. So,
excellent.
I've been fortunate to be edited by not only Chuck, but also Chris and Toni and Casey for submissions and anthologies that they edited. And in the cases of those 3 anthologies, which were all very successful, it was based on the editor's preparation of the battlefield or the battle space. So in all those cases, but especially for Murphy's Lawless, all the editors, in this case Chuck, put in the time before any author wrote the very first word. I think in Chuck's case, you wrote easily, not counting the mainline novels, which I'd read and which are excellent, easily 60,000 words, 70,000 words of canon, right down to the orbital specs for the main planets and the planetoids in the system where the action took place, an explanation of physics, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea that the shared world is less work for the person whose world it is. Yeah. This is not true. These are labors of love.
Well, I know.
Certainly, Chuck has put in a ton of work to make this happen, and the only reason that it's come across as seamlessly as it has is all of the time and effort that Chuck's put into it.
I want to know who came up with the titles. Those are great titles for those novellas.
Well,
everybody came up with their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But Mike is responsible. Mike, I'm pointing at you. Mike is responsible.
Right direction. Crap! I did it the wrong way again.
He's responsible for the convention that sort of happened because he chose an '80s tune to kind of inspire it. One word '80s tune, and then Kevin followed suit and Griffin followed suit. So, so the convention was all Mike.
And a one-word title, because I felt that novellas are the sort of, when you think in novella, you're thinking short impact it ought to market quickly. It ought to say what it is. And when Mike came up with a one-word title, I said, let's make that our convention. That's part of what you said. And I
then
just want to
Chris Kennedy's packaging is also just really on point. Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to say is that it is a lot of work, but I'd like to say for anybody else who's out there thinking about it, it is a lot of upfront work. But if you've been keeping notes, for me, it was assembling it. I had all the notes already. I'd done the work for the series. Now it was a matter of saying, okay, and there's a reason it's set in one actual binary system called 55 Tori, because there was only so much Bible I wanted to write, so to speak. That's what I did, and I only steal from the best. My first publication credit was in Jerry Purnell's, which is also to say John Carr's Warworld series, and that's exactly what they did. They took a banging universe, if you will, and they said, okay, authors, you can go to this one isolated system and do whatever you like there because it can't have further effect. Now,
right.
Just so people are aware, this system is not like that. It's like that right now, but this actually becomes pivotal later on. But that's
dun, dun, dun.
I like. So speaking about World Bibles, Chris and Mark Wandry did a really nice World Bible for their Four Horsemen universe, and I remember the first story I wrote for them. I had a human as a peacekeeper, and I got back edit notes from Chris, and he said, "We don't have any human peacekeepers, so you're gonna have to make him a 4-armed alien." I was like, "Oh, okay, that works. That's fine." So that was fun. I liked working with him. But you mentioned his work on the covers and the packaging. I really enjoy the sameness of the covers, but also the way that they differentiate from each other. Whose idea was that to use the same kind of foreground characters, but then to change the background?
Well, it was mine mostly as a cost saving measure.
Yeah,
because we didn't know, how well this would be taken by the readers and if everybody'd sign up for it. So it made sense to go with something that is easily changeable, so that it's a different cover for each of them. You get a little bit something different, the different terrain that they're going to, but yet it's similar enough that everybody knows what this is, and it allowed us to keep the cost down on the cover.
And they're beautiful. They're so beautiful, especially Mark's, man. Yeah. Mark's cover for Pearl. Yeah. Super jealous. I totally should have written a nice story.
Yeah, I was wishing the same thing when I saw that. I would have gone, hey, that one's mine. But nothing in mine happens at night.
But conversely, as soon as I saw the helicopter on your cover, I absolutely knew that it was yours.
Yeah. Chris put that in just for me, because I asked him. I was like, can one of the figures on the front, since my main character's a woman, can one of the figures on the front be a woman? And he's like, no, but you can have a helicopter. I was like, okay, fair. So
now we just need a dog door gunner, and we'll have the set complete. So
yes.
I had a similar discussion about the firearms that the three characters on the cover are carrying. With Chuck. We went around and around about that, but it's good to be the editor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like Bane art direction. It's like, oh man, the image is fantastic, but can you get the finger out of the trigger guard? And that's not really what that rifle looks like. Yes.
You must have trigger discipline, or they will eat you alive.
or there's got to be a reason for the trigger undisciplined. Let me just say that.
Yes.
The most important thing about the cover and the weapons choices, of course, was, and then you get things back, and there's always that issue of, can you always find something to improve? Of course you can, but then you'll break something, and then you don't have people who want to work with you anymore because you're never happy. And the key function there was that it should be photorealistic to some degree, and also that the weapons reflect the different epochs from which the lost soldiers come. So we had the grease gun, so there's a World War II element. You got the bloop guns, there's a Vietnam element. And you got the AK, which although it is an earlier AK rather than a later AK, does suggest that it even goes on from Vietnam in terms of their source.
The AK is timeless. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
And then you get readers that go
3 centuries from now. Yeah.
and then you get a reader that goes, well, hey, you've got a World War II guy and a Vietnam guy, and what's up with that? You can say, read the story.
Yeah, that's what the story is about.
We know.
Not an accident, buddy. Not an accident.
Yeah.
So coming from an author who is looking, or maybe even a reader that is interested in this, when the authors choose their stories, is there a timeline that you can select from which the characters were brought from? Because we have these 3 different times here: Vietnam, World War II, or whatever. Was that something the authors were given freedom to do, or were they just said you could pick from these ones and go?
Well, again, speaking back to Chuck laying the groundwork, the event that led to all the characters from these novellas being on this planet at the same time is an integral part of the mainline novels from which these novellas are drawn. And so while we could fine tune the characters, the eras from which they were coming and their nationalities, we could select within a small group of nationalities and sort of, mid 20th century to late 20th century, maybe even early 21st. But that was it. And then he actually prepared some initial backstory for I'll call it the lead character in each novella. Again, speaking to the preparation is a big part of what made it successful.
So you didn't have to change to a four-armed alien somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and also there's a limited number of these people too. And Chuck has a list of how many and what they are and such. When I started using, Chuck started reading my story and he's like, I hope you're not going to kill off all these people because there's only a few.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can't kill this one, you can't kill that one, you can't kill that one.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like the Grantville Gazette and the Eric Flint's Ring of Fire series, where there were just a certain number of uptime humans that are transported to the past, and there's a genealogist on their staff who knows the backstory of each and every one of those people. So when you play in that universe, as I know Chuck has done, you are limited to the characters that you're allowed to do, and they're not allowed to have superpowers either. You can't have super ninja, minor, housewife. Yeah. So
no magic catfish, Tony.
Yes.
The other thing about the choosing of the stories is we originally were thinking of a different story order. We were thinking of Casey as the leadoff batter. Then this minor element called Uncle Sam got involved and sent her to Tokyo. So and so we had a little bit of an adjustment to make. And Mike, God love him, came in and took the lead up spot and teed us off. And it's a great start. And I don't think anybody would ever know that this was not part of the original plan. But it's one of the things about having plans. People say, well, things change, so why make plans? It's exactly because things change that you do make plans, that you can find the beat as quickly again as possible. And we did. But the thing is that all 6 of these novellas, 5 are out right now. Chris he refuses to be waved off. He's coming here for landing. That's also fun. But the idea is they are actually essentially sequential. Certainly in terms of the unfolding, and they are going to be presented as a braided novel. I come in and do someplace between about 15 and 20,000 words of what I'll call integument, so that it reads as a novel. And that was necessary because we wanted, therefore, to be able to sell them in that large size, because a lot of folks who seem to be indie consumers who like the novella, a lot of the folks from the traditional publishing side, they want novels, damn it. And so I figured, well, then let's give them a novel. But this is where you get into the timing as well. After Chris's novella comes out, we actually have a longer break than usual. And the reason for that is to make sure that every one of the authors, I wanted every one of those authors to have their own name. There was only one author credit on the title, regardless of whatever level of and they're all wonderful writers. They didn't need me. I just happened to be there, soaking up space. but the thing is that then there's a 2-month break between the last novella and the novel coming out, so that everybody gets a chance, because now we're all capitalists. If the moment that final novel comes out, you can bet, and Chris pointed this out to me because I was out to lunch, I guess. He said, the sales on the novellas are going to go down once the collected novel's out. And I said, wow, why didn't I think of that? And so
because you're not a publisher.
But the point is that then there is a novel at the end, which actually, knowing that, fed into the structure of the stories. We knew we had to have stories that handed off to each other, and that then I could write those middle pieces too, so at the end, if you've only seen the novel, you don't say, wow, this seems really cut up. It's just 6 simple stories arced in.
Well, and that longer format will also, if you get into the audio market, that will lend you to the credit, because you have that really long audio book that people will dump a credit on, better than, short fiction really doesn't do very well on Audible.
Right.
It's just that one piece, but as a collection, that's really smart. I like that idea.
Yeah, it's going to come out to be about probably 175,000 words by the time everything's done. Now more than that, closer to 200,000. So it's going to be something that you'll get your money's worth for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's almost 20 hours on audio, and that's a really good deal for people looking at credits.
Which is one of the reasons why. So one of the an anthology that came out with Eric Flin's Ring of Fire Press, which is now being released over to Chris Kennedy, called Lost Signals, and Mike and KC and Griffin were all contributors to that. That is actually right now. There's a little bit of a conflict whether we're going to go with Blackstone or Audible. We already have a deal on the table from Audible. They seem to be very interested in this property. So the bottom line is we don't have to arrange for that. I'm leaning towards Audible simply because my attitude was anybody who's reading Lost Signals should be able to look at a Bain book from the series and say, oh, it looks like that. Well, it should also sound like it, I think.
Yeah.
You want to be always going to the same place. You don't want to send people all over to different markets and contacts. So my tendency is to go with Audible, particularly if we can get the same wonderful narrator that we've had for the Caine books at Bain. So yeah, the format is also helping us.
Narrators are a big deal in that market for sure. I had a question actually while you were talking, and as soon as I thought of the narrator thing, it went right out of my head, and now I'm going to try to pull it back in because it was a really good question, and I was holding on to it. I got it. So we talked about a little bit about this during the pre-show, but as with everybody's work, you're trying to get people in at different points in your career. So you'll get them into this series of books and they'll go read your other stuff, or you get them in with this series of books and they'll go read your other stuff. With a program like this, you have multiple authors with multiple readers and fan bases experiencing stories from other authors and getting those authors more face time with other readers. How much of that went into your thinking for wanting to do it this way? Because I think that's a really interesting aspect. And also going from traditional to indie and indie to traditional, where you have all those readers going back and forth, and you're really just kind of expanding your reader base exponentially.
Pure chance.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah, accidental.
Yeah.
Chuck, why don't you take that one first?
You want me to take it? Okay.
Yeah, you take that one first.
Okay. First of all, it was wonderful working with Chris because simply I didn't know about this field. I knew I didn't know about this field, and that means the less you know about a field, the more you absolutely have to trust a person. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I say it's a gut sort of thing. But from the very beginning, the notion was to go back to what I think both Toni and Chris have touched upon. If you're not a Bain reader, but you're a Chris Kennedy publication reader, or vice versa, you are likely to find a new second home if you jump into this series from whichever direction you're going. Right. And that was right at the top of our thought. As far as all the audiences, you bet. it was part of who got invited. It was also familiarity with the universe, but also the sense of who has what kind of audience base that we can reach out to. And I think that you're going to see next season, next year, 2020, the 2021 series is going to show further progress down that strategic path.
And David Weber, David Weber has always said that, who you are as a writer is based on who you are as a reader. If whatever you read the most of, you're going to tend to write like that. And I know all of our authors are, Baen readers, so they tend to write in a style and manner such that most of the people, that are Baen readers are going to appreciate it. Aside from the fact that in this series, 4 of the 6 are Baen authors too, which certainly doesn't hurt. So yeah, it's a lot of people that are in different places. Like you can find Casey in a number of places. So she has fans all over, and we'll happily bring them in and show them the Caine Riordan universe. And at the back of each of the novellas, there's a link to the Baen site with all of the books, so that they can go read the rest of the series. And I know Toni's been very generous in promoting some of the novellas, so that her folks, her readers can find it too, and which is great, because this series is something that further fleshes out the universe, and will ultimately become more important, as Chuck kind of alluded to. But it's a great partnership, I think, between Baen and CKP, because we do have a lot of the same authors, a lot of the same readers, and I think that it's great working with Toni and Baen.
And I will say too that we have published Chris in Give Me Liberty Con. Proud to publish Chris Kennedy's own fiction, and we've also published Mark Wandry or we will have published Mark Wandry in a collaboration he's got coming up in Another Shared World. He's got a collaboration with David Weber. Yeah. Oh yeah, you were. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So eventually, everyone becomes a Baen author. It's and we should also mention.
Sitting here going, I will rule the world.
We get all the good guys. We do, and we should mention that Josh is in fact a Baen author.
Just newly Baen author. Yes,
new Baen author in Battle Luna.
Battle Luna. Hi, oops, wrong way. High five, Josh.
Yeah, there it is.
Nope, I did.
Yeah. Where Casey also has a story. So yeah. It's when you have similar philosophies and similar approaches to storytelling, it makes sense. It just makes sense.
100%.
Yeah, and you really hit on it right there, Toni. The idea that, like, everybody involved in this project is someone who is excited about the prospect of, space travel, and excited about the prospect of, exploring our universe. And that, something so fundamental, and it's so easy to say, it really does inform, kind of the whole spirit of the whole series. And I think that for me, that was, in selecting his team, Chuck was really smart in picking people who did have that same kind of, we all have that kind of wonder, I guess, because when I read all the stories, I can see all that. And I think that that's something that readers are responding to, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chuck alluded to the fact that all of the novels are first contact novels in one way or another. And I think the overall arching theme of this is, what is humanity's place in the universe? And there's so many ways to address that question, right? And
Chuck does several of them.
but some people said, are you sure you want to do this? Because shouldn't the universe have a voice? And my feeling about that is for a universe to, it depends what you want in your verisimilitude, if you will. What does real feel like? And to me, I wanted the different voices. I wanted the different perspectives, because a real universe, our real world, is a place of many, many different flavors and impressions. And it struck me that the natural path to go with is not to all keep it inside of my myopic pipeline, but if other people can play and still not pull it too far away from what people expect, then that only makes it feel more real, I think, and more diverse. And I'm all about that.
I think that that's one of the strengths of the Four Horsemen universe too, because we have 6 core authors, but then we've had over 100 authors write in the universe with all of the various anthologies. And I think that it's just sorry?
And kept under word count.
Yeah. Maybe. Were you under one out of 3? But one time I made it. One time. Yeah. As long as there's somebody that stands at the back that kind of makes sure that everything is level and going in the right direction, like Chuck is for the Murphy's Lawless, keeping everything on track. And I think it works out really well, because you get that diversity of experience, but still in a shared universe where it all works together seamlessly.
Yeah.
And you mentioned doing a second season next year. Is it going to be a continuation of what we have now, or is it going to be something new? Are we still going to be in this universe, or are we going to come up with something brand new? And I see him have this little. He's got this look like he has secrets. Yes.
Chuck, this one's definitely yours.
Okay. Well, not only do we know what's happening, we have it booked out through to December of next year, because one of the things that's important to me is labor management. For me, for everybody else, we're changing it up a little. Instead of doing 6, which I think was important to do, 6 in a row and then culminating in one big novel, we're doing 2 sets of 3. So you're looking at about 25,000 words times 3, plus what I put in, making about a 90,000 word novel twice in the course of the year. That's 8 months of the year right there. To answer your question, is it new and different, or is it the same place? Why, yes.
I like that.
Because one of the things that the first year or season, if you like, God, my old TV roots come back to me and haunt me in a sense here. Not always in a positive way. It's positive now. It just reminds me of things that weren't positive then. But the thing is that the first year, so to speak, this year has been about survival when you get right down to it. But there are a lot of threads that are in there. Why are people using this? What's going on with the vegetation? How long has the society been here? We're only going to get a chance to get to that in the second one, but still not certainly get to the bottom of it, because even at the end of this, we know what right now, for folks who are not familiar with the series, and you can correct that really quickly. That guy way over there at the bottom is they have to stop a communication from going back to the other system in this binary system, or they're going to be toast. But that still doesn't answer the problem of an eventual problem from there. That's going to largely be what the second year is going to deal with. But in the course of that, there's going to have to be secrets that are discovered, but also unearthed along the way. So there's a constant sense of the new connected to the mystery of what is this place? Why is it as strange as it is, with this constant survival imperative that keeps running through the series.
So do you also want to mention the other things that will be out?
You could. I'm talking as much as I am, too much as it is. That cat's getting awful bored.
Well, I don't want to get too far down the road, but Chuck mentioned this book called Lost Signals that Casey and Mike are in, Griffin Barber as well. Let's just say that may not be the only lost signals there are. And that might not be the only format that it comes in. So
I love his very sneaky ways. I love them.
we have plans.
I love it that LPs are coming back, don't you? It's so awesome.
So there's a lot coming. I hope everyone jumps into the Murphy's Lawless and the Caine series through Baen, because if you like it, which if you like sci-fi, you're going to. There's a lot coming that is really going to keep you enthralled.
And there's chance things. For instance, if you were to go to Fans just recently put together a group page for me. Thank you, anybody who's watching. I would have never had the time to do that myself. But one of the things I did do was I ran a poll. What do people want to see threads about, conversations about in the course of this Facebook page? Not that is in any way a proof of concept way of looking at what if we were going to thematically target the subsequent lost signals, what's going to get the highest readership. So that poll is giving us a sense of, do we go with another military collection? Do we go with something more based on the mystery? Do we go with something based on First Contact? And so, that's just chance. Thank God that happened that way.
Actually, a question that kind of coincides with what you're saying, but it looked like earlier Mike had something to say. I want to see if we can get him to jump in.
Well, one of the things we haven't touched on in this, although the lead characters in these novellas and Murphy's Lawless are all humans. I should say all Terrans, and that distinction is important in the larger series, and indeed in these novels. One of the neat things that Chuck has done is he's introduced new alien species, which have really interesting ties to one another, but they're not merely human characters in funny, strange alien suits. They truly are alien. And I was interested if Chuck wanted to comment on how, and maybe not, but Chuck is, I won't say guilty of, but certainly likes to use misdirection, where there's the big bad race over here and the quiet one over here. And it's this one that's really scary if you read carefully. But these are the ones we're all looking at all the time. And I wanted to ask Chuck, so when do we get to see book 6?
That's actually the only question, but it's pretty soon. I don't know what the Baen schedule is like. I know when I'm scheduled to deliver it. Which
will be anywhere from 12 months to between that time.
So I'm actually doing the first 2 books in an epic fantasy trilogy called The Vortex of Worlds, and Toni got to choose that. We got to choose that title when you get right down to it. We had a long discussion on it. And all I'm going to say is that while it sounds like it couldn't have anything to do with this series, maybe assumption is not always the best thing. But when I'm done with those 2, which I'm going to write back to back, then I'm turning around to the next Caine book. I'm probably writing the next 2 of those because I find I have a tendency to write in volume, so to speak, but I can create a break point that is actually a good novel stop point. So I think you're going to see book 6 and 7 sometime. Book 6 sometime, certainly by the first half of next year, will be to Toni, and the next one following shortly thereafter. And for anybody who's read forward to book 5, that things are changing in a very, very big way in the series.
That's kind of why I'm asking, because I've read through book 5.
And I would like to know what happens next. Please and thank you.
Your cliffhangers
I feel like
are
I
getting
should
more
have an inside
hanging.
track here, Chuck. I mean, come on.
Well, if it was just us, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I've said is I don't have any secrets. If there's stuff about the series that these guys don't know, it's simply because I think nothing is more terrible than what I'm doing right now, which is an author droning on about their series. But it's important that everybody who's involved in the project sort of knows what its further waypoints are, so that it's not like, well, where the heck are you going with this? No, there's a reason, maybe a bizarre reason, but there's a reason. And so that's what that's what we will be doing a lot, I think, as we start talking about and setting those plots in motion for 2021.
That was actually one of my follow-on question there, is we have different authors, different minds, different different ways of looking at a problem, and they all come up with different ideas of how to solve a problem, but then come up with different ideas that may or may not have an effect on your actual series or even the other books in the series. Have you come up to anything where in these specific stories where the author has come up with an original idea or something where you're like, oh, maybe we can use that to further your series or further the universe as a whole that you hadn't thought of, and then incorporate it in?
Absolutely.
Good, very good.
You want the short answer, okay? You really want the short answer, particularly with me.
Well, it's curious to me, especially with someone who is dealing with collaboration, is also written in other people's worlds. You have things that you can't have happen because of reasons, and then you have reasons. You have things that can happen. You're like, oh, that's a really good idea. I can incorporate that in. And it's curious to see the latitude that people get in different projects.
There are three writers on the scene on the screen right now in the series, and all of them did this. All of them brought me something.
Guilty.
That was new. Sometimes absolutely directly. Sometimes, but the bottom line is, I love that. I'm not. That's what makes it fresh. And I can't think of anybody in the series who didn't do something like that. At some level, they introduced something.
We went back and forth one day, Chuck and I, as we were talking about my book, and Chuck went, oh my God, and oh my God, and he had some ideas just based on a couple things that I had done, and he got all excited, and all of a sudden he's writing, I'm trying to do other things, and the Facebook feed is just going zing, 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 zing. I'm like, dear God, can you stop now, please? But he was so excited, and it was great stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that'll be cool. Oh yeah, give me a bunch of that. I'll take a bushel of that. And so it's going to be neat to see next season. We're also going to have 2 new authors, and I don't think it's been mentioned anywhere. But Chuck, give me a nod if it's okay to mention them.
Absolutely.
It's not a nod. That's a shaking your head.
I got no problem with it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Jonathan Brazee is going to be involved with next year, and William Allen Webb.
Cool.
Will be in. So there's going to be some new viewpoints, perhaps, and some new background things that authors are good at. I mean, you bring in Jonathan Brazee, you get a whole lot of marine, and he wrote one of the best stories in the Four Horsemen anthologies out of all of the entire group, which there's 9 of them now. And so that's 100 and some stories, and in the one that I remember most is Jonathan Brazee. So he's going to be a lot of fun to work with.
He is a lot of fun to work with. I edited him for he gave us a story for Negotiation, the Dupic anthology that I did for Chris, and man, his story, you're right. It blew me away, and he was just really cool to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Good dude.
And he's a parent of twins, so
right.
Chuck and I,
because it's not like he's got anything else going on.
That's right. That's right.
So just to say, Mike essentially defined what a lot of the nature of the indigenous tribe in the most difficult parts of the planet, and I knew they were out there. He took it, he ran with it, and so much of what they have become is from that. Casey basically wanted to do something which brought in a love story, but there was a difficulty with the love story having to do with where children could be or not be, because there's people who live in 0G or near 0G and people who don't, and that made me realize, oh well, guess what? And we worked it out together. What sort of caste system there would have to be, what sort of arrangements there would have to be to make those two things work. And as Chris said, he gave me an idea because in dealing with a challenge, a technological challenge, for whatever reason, it kicked me off. And what he's referring to, this long stream of pestering that he endured, actually became the rollout, the entirety of the arc rollout for next year.
Very cool.
So it kind of worked out okay.
Yeah, it was
You're welcome. As we wrap up, I'd like to give the authors a chance to kind of give a little preview of what the next thing they have working on, or the next thing that's coming out, and maybe Toni and Chris, you can kind of finish up with what Bain and Chris Kennedy Publishing has coming out here. So if we want to start, maybe we'll start with Casey and then go around the room.
Okay. Let's see. What month is it? It is July. Still, yes. Okay.
Very-ish.
So I think the next thing that I have coming out is it's a sci-fi noir series, or first book in a sci-fi noir series that Griffin Barber, who's another Murphy's Lawless author, and I wrote together. It's coming out from neither of these wonderful publishers is coming out from Blackstone Publishing in September, and it's called Second Chance Angel. So it's got it's like an AI sort of sci-fi noir Blade Runner kind of esque thing, and I'm super excited about it.
By the way,
what's that?
The cover's fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yes, I love the cover. The cover, it is across the room, and I have a super helpful 17-year-old who will maybe get it for me here and bring it to me so I can.
I love props.
No. She's got, never mind, sorry. She's got her headphones in. So that'll be out September 8th from Blackstone. And then after that, I am not sure. I am currently working on just getting ready to start the outline for season 2 of Murphy's Lawless, which I will be putting together here in the next couple months. And working on the sequel to Gunpowder and Embers, which came out from Bain in January, right? Yeah. January or December? Yeah. January. Yeah. January. So, so Chris Smith and I are starting to work on that, and we're putting together pieces and then sending them off to John. And so,
the coolest thing I like about working with Casey is the ability to go down to like half an hour of your deadline and still deliver. That you're supposed to have the story submitted for the anthology. I don't know that I've ever been as close to a deadline as I have with Casey, and that was
sweet.
Yeah. About that.
I had it clean in my heads, and y'all are just taking it in a different direction. Chuck, what do you have coming out next?
I have a lot. I'm very fortunate. I've been talking too much. I'm going to let Toni talk about what she's holding up and give the rest of the time to the other two authors. Okay?
Excellent.
So, we've got I think the e-arc is out actually of At the End of the World, which is in John Ringo's Black Tide Rising universe. And it's a post-apocalyptic rebuilding novel. Really excited about. So, no, this is just out actually.
It's out. July 4, yeah.
Right, yeah, because we know it's a national bestseller already. So, yeah.
Awesome. Hey, congrats. Awesome. What about you, Chris?
Of course, my novel Wave Off comes out in the Murphy's Lawless series this month on the 18th. Also have a couple books coming out in the Four Horsemen universe. One with Mark Wandry, main storyline novel Gale Force, which is going to be really exciting for the readers because many secrets will be revealed. That comes out on the 7th, so 2 weeks. And it's a good one.
Awesome. Mike?
So far this year, in addition to this novella, I turned in a short that was published in Give Me LibertyCon by Bain Books, an anthology celebrating LibertyCon. I think that was in June it came out, Toni. And I delivered and was published a short story in Peter Nealon's Maelstrom Rising universe, an anthology called Spot Reps, about a dolphin of questionable ethics and morals. And then if anybody that's been to Dragon Con's There I Was, No Kidding panel will know who he is. And I'm overdue, cough, cough, on a short story set in the third anthology of John Ringo's Black Tide Rising universe, which I have to get done here post haste, and continue to work on a couple of novels of my own, hopefully to be delivered to Toni before 2020 is out. Crossed fingers.
All right. That's exciting. Yeah, we should mention that all four of these authors have stories in Give Me Liberty Con, which is an anthology where the proceeds will go to Liberty Con itself, which is a 501c3 organization, and a charity scholarship in the name of Liberty Con's founder, Tim Boljo. So it's a great anthology, great stories by all of these guys in there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And thank you to Mia Cleve, who linked a lot of the books we just talked about in the live chat on Facebook. So
yay,
thank
Maya!
you very much.
Maya's awesome.
Yay!
Yay, Maya!
Hey.
And everybody else, she just linked LibertyCon. There we go. Everybody that came out and hung out with us this morning, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us in the live chat. If this is your first time visiting us on YouTube, like I said before, please subscribe to our channel for more great interviews. Or sometimes we don't have great interviews. Sometimes we just sit around and mumble and chat, and they're all fun. To our wonderful panel, thank you all for coming on the show. It was a blast. I had a really good time talking with you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
All together now.
That's right. And if we can all get the pointing in the direction, I don't know. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Definitely subscribe and listen and watch us on YouTube. We'll be here Thursday. I don't know what Lauren and Kayleen have going on Thursday night, but definitely Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central. Hang out with them on the Writer's Journey and with Walt Robillard on Tuesday mornings with Coffee and Concepts. You don't want to miss that short show on Tuesday mornings. Come back and hang out with us next week. We're going to talk about writing. We're going to talk about reading and, of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. You guys have a great Monday.
Arrivederci.
Bye now.
Bye.